Okay, so last but very much not least of our plenaries, I'm very delighted to re-welcome Kathryn Kaiser, who some of you will have heard yesterday at the Best of session. I think it's fair to say that Kathryn's plenary last year was pretty legendary, even by Pidapalooza standards, so we're really happy to have her back here to deliver our closing plenary this year. So thanks, Kathryn, and over to you.
Thanks, Alice. It's really exciting to be here. It's weird to just be doing this in my office with my cat, who is not interested at all, but I hope you all are excited. This has been a great attempt to keep the fires burning in spite of all the challenges, and so I congratulate everyone. There's a poll that I've posted that you can participate in, a little geography quiz that we'll get started with, but we're also going to have some dancing to get your blood flowing and get some excitement going before we wrap it up here. And yes, dogs love PIDs too. Okay, so let's get going. Let's see here. Alrighty, so this is a continuation, but you didn't have to necessarily see my talk from last year to understand what I'm going to talk about today. But I like to keep it with a theme of dancing, and so I'm going to, first of all, let you all have some music to enjoy while answering the poll. So let's just turn on this little tune here. Called Dance in Place, even though there's not any words to it. And I hope you all are out there dancing. I can't see it. I wish I could invite you up to the stage, but here's what we have.
1, 2, 3, 4.
All kinds of great dancers on the screen from all over the world. I hope you enjoy it. Alice, are you dancing? I'm gonna look at the video later.
Luckily for everyone, my video is off at the moment, Kathryn, but yes, I'm dancing on my chair.
Tell me you're dancing.
Yep, well, if not dancing, then jiggling around.
Whatever works. Love these guys. All right, hope you all enjoyed that. And so we've got some responses from the poll coming in here still. Some good guesses, definitely some good guesses. So I'm going to go ahead and stop it now. And so overall, most people were correct. I don't know how many of y'all went out and Googled that or, you know, did what you needed to do to figure this out. Pittsburgh, not just a city in Pennsylvania. Milano, city of my birth, not just a city in Italy. Paris, actually, there's a movie called Paris, Texas from a long time ago. Some of you may have heard of that. Gun Barrel City, I think it was named that because of its long, straight main street, but it's kind of questionable with the gun culture in Texas. You never really know. Same for Point Blank. But anyway, some of you didn't buy into any of these being possible. And so that just goes to show you that a certain amount of local knowledge can be helpful. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the issues that are in front of us right now with public health. So as you know, with the pandemic, geography is very important to understand certain things about how public health works or doesn't work, as it were. So it can be bounded by local and expert knowledge because it tends to be administered at a local level. And so we tend to make maps at various administrative levels. So you might see this graph that's not good about our trends in the United States at that level. Or here's the southeastern United States where I live. And here's Birmingham. And you can see that, you know, the disease doesn't have discrete boundaries between counties, but that's just how we tend to count and measure things and administer interventions. So also, as we have learned, painfully, cultural factors are kind of an important part of the challenges that we face with public health. And it's also very decentralized. So that also can make it seem very odd that at a country level, certain things aren't happening very well. Some countries have much more centralized mechanisms than we do here in the United States. And unfortunately, politicization can be, has to be anticipated. And it has to be navigated to be able to be effective working around those parameters. So the other thing is there's, time component. And so I've got my two Earths spinning here just because they're, some of you may relate to the fact that it seems like the Earth spinning changed speeds, either it slowed down or it sped way up. But also how we tend to conceptualize the Earth may have this overlay of political boundaries that you can see on the right, or just the view from space, kind of, if you will, when there's no clouds around the atmosphere anyway, on the left. And so depending on how you want to represent data, really just kind of depends on your scientific purpose. So our models change over time. And so some prior work and data may be tied to older representations, as we know from the flu epidemic from 1918. The countries and organizations of these political boundaries were different back then. So being able to link or superimpose different models based on time and place is really kind of a critical piece for public health monitoring and research, in the real-time phase that we are right now, and also certainly comparing across events. So, the policies and the public health data surveillance tools that we have are limited. And so we really aren't able to address the emergencies in real time, which we have seen painfully this year. And so also these public health emergencies can kind of compress the normal research cycle times and publication timelines. Can also, kind of result in some scary things in terms of mistakes in data or retracted papers or wasted resources. Trying to rush can sometimes be detrimental. But at the same time, people need answers. And so being able to take new scientific questions to the existing scientific record during these kinds of eras that we're in is important to be able to avoid missing perhaps important knowledge that could be optimally applied in the new scenarios. So research data that is properly documented can be applied to address these new questions. So I just wanted to touch on, I'm not going to go into detail, a paper that was recently published. It was a follow-on from an ISA Plus conference presentation that some of the folks here were involved in. And I was pleased to be invited to join this group to write this piece called Metadata, the Accelerant We Need. So we were pointing out some instances from the past or the present that point out how metadata could speed science. And so you can go and read this article there. One of the things that we're writing this over the summer, and things are still playing out, but to a certain extent, this pandemic has just been the perfect case for why metadata is so critical, and how certain pieces of it in particular can be an important component. And that's what I'm going to talk about today, which is the whole issue of geography in public health. And so one of the efforts that was early on done during the pandemic, I believe it was done in either April or May, perhaps, the Chan Zuckerberg folks and some other folks got together and said, here's a collection of papers, over 25,000 papers that we think can help scientists try to figure out what we need to do in terms of treatments or developing vaccines or diagnostics or other things. So a collection was created, and it was provided to the public, which was great. But the problem with collections still within themselves, without proper metadata, it still becomes that F word of findability. So if you take a collection, and sometimes it can be removed from the source in a way that certain useful components that we might normally rely on in terms of some types of searches is not present in that collection in a way that we might be able to drill down and try to identify the papers that we're really interested in. And so also some collections can get unsynchronized from other services that make them get stale. And so these approaches can require some tools in terms of machine learning or natural language processing that most researchers aren't comfortable with, don't have knowledge of, or necessarily have access to. And so I think that being able to build on some of the efforts that have been done in the past year would certainly be great to make sure that in the future we can help researchers get to those answers more quickly. And another issue I think that I've heard addressed in other realms, and certainly here, is we kind of have a skewed view of that English is sort of the default language of science, if you will, which isn't fair. And even within English, there's certain inconsistencies and problems that make it difficult to navigate that I think metadata could address. So we're kind of lazy to look at ways to translate information, in particular around country names. So this is from the endonym Wikipedia page. So endonyms are what the country calls itself, rather than what we in the English-speaking world tend to refer to it as. So for example, here we call Cambodia, they call Kampuchea, and there's many other examples, of course. And so these can evolve over time. And so therefore, making reference to these, depending on the event that you're referring to or the data that was collected in a certain era, that name for that time is important. So if you look at the history of just the name of the country of China that we call China, I won't attempt to pronounce China as a Chinese person because I'm not good with that. But there's so many names historically that people from Europe would refer to China as. And so again, that can be useful for scholarly works to know during that area what was typically used to refer to that place. And so I've been thinking about, if I were to try to solve this problem with my limited abilities, what could I do to try to link places to standardized lists of names? And so I found this website source called GeoNames, and their statement on the website is that they are a geographical database that covers all countries and contains over 11 million place names that are available for download free of charge. And so it has the CC BY attribution, And there's a variety of client tools and web service levels. So if you're not familiar with it, I don't know what all that stuff does necessarily, but I think it's good. And so this is an example of just the link to the country Austria. So if you click on the link there for other languages, it gives a whole lot of language names and country names, languages, and the language codes. There's 2 and 3 letter codes. And I know there's also ISO code standards for countries as well. But again, this is, dynamic. And so it's one of those things where depending on when you are documenting what has happened, this list may or may not represent at that point in time what was going on. So I downloaded just as an experiment to try to say, okay, if I use things like titles and abstracts and keywords, which is very often what we're faced with in terms of the metadata we have, if you want to call that metadata, to identify locations for particular studies. I downloaded a set of 10,000 COVID papers and used a bibliographic tool to export the keywords. And these are actually with the asterisk or the subject heading designations. And you can see, again, you have problems of, I pulled out some of these. I don't know that this is necessarily a place name, but like the third one down, Arab, or in Alabama, there's a town named Arab, as they pronounce it. Atkins could be a diet, or it could be a small town in Iowa. And so without the context or really any kind of designation, we don't really know. Here you can see, Brazil with an S as the endonym. And so some of these are cities, some of them are regions, some of them are referencing a particular incident, like the Fukushima, and I apologize for mispronouncing that, nuclear accident. I'm not sure what that had to do necessarily with COVID, but I haven't gone to find that paper. And then, of course, geography. So here's Pittsburgh. This is a measurement tool. It's a self-reported questionnaire to ask people about their sleep quality. And it was named the Pittsburgh sleep quality for, I don't know, the university there. But this is a common problem in medicine, is that things get place names when they aren't actually representing a place. So again, the context of the use of that word is important. And you can see that the capitalization isn't necessarily always, per English standards like Catalonia in Spain, or for some reason, University of Oxford was just all lowercase. I don't know how to explain that, but this is what came through from the publisher. I don't know what to say. So we have some technical challenges trying to map some of this information to get the metadata that we need. So, one of the things about the COVID pandemic is that population density in terms of rolling out testing resources, surveillance, public health interventions, and now with vaccine distribution, being able to know, overlaying disease incidence with population density is important. How big is an area that's being studied? We can say that data were collected in a certain city, but that could spread out for several square miles or kilometers. What about locations that aren't fixed on the surface of the earth? So there's data that's collected in submarines, airplanes, cruise ships, International Space Station, some future moon base, who knows? So we have to think about data in a place and a time that we need to refer to in a standard way. And so with public health, importantly, being able to merge that with other data, such as food sources, weather, water, or soil conditions, can be important to know what might the people who were in that area at that time exposed to, where diseases might have occurred. So I want to wrap up and just say a couple of things to express my gratitude for the organizing committee. And after this, I'll take some questions. But in particular, I know the Crossref team has just done a Herculean effort this year, and I know that several of them are hopefully listening. And my heartfelt thanks to you all for what you do. Being able to put that data out there like you've done is just a huge source of hope for me. And thanks to all the other folks at California Digital Library, NISO, ORCID, DataSite. And I'm just going to do one little thing. I think we need to acknowledge, for a lot of folks how difficult this year has been. And so I just want to share this for you as a memoriam to those that we have lost. I'm just going to start a little tune here.
The silence is quiet, and it feels like it's getting hard to breathe. And I know you feel like dying, but I promise we would take the world to its feet. Mountains, bring it to its feet. Mountains. And I'll rise up, I'll rise like the day, I'll rise up, I'll rise unafraid, I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again.
So I'd like to just end with the encouragement to let's all rise up and move towards better metadata to accelerate and expand the reach of all scholarly objects around the world and beyond. And I have to just say, I had to put the Bernie meme in there. For those of you who don't know about the Bernie meme, it's a thing. Thank you very much. And I'm just going to play a little out music here. People post questions, and we'll still have time for questions. All right, you ready to dance? Let's do it.
1, 2, 3, 4.
There's Alice dancing. There, I see her.
Okay, thank you so much, Kathryn, and particularly thank you for ending in such a thoughtful way. That was, I think that was a really a lovely thing to do and a really good reminder to us all about what's important, and also genuinely, you know, maybe not in an absolutely direct way, but what we all do in the work that we do ultimately is helping to save some of those lives and supporting the people who are in need of support. So thank you. That was really wonderful.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I just want to let everybody know out there, you know, the data, the services, you know, keeping that website up 24 hours a day, you know, us scientists and clinicians and folks are out there looking for answers. And what you do is critical, that it's there and that you keep it up to date. And I can't thank you enough.
Yeah, but we need to do more. I think one of the messages from PIDapalooza every year actually is there's more we need to do technically, you know, in terms of community outreach, in terms of better quality metadata. You know, we're not there yet by any means, but it was a very well placed reminder that what we do is really important as well.
Yeah, from your home and from your computer and in your pajamas, you are saving lives. Honest and for true, yes.
Thank you. Well, somewhat amazing, we don't actually seem to have any questions, but we do have 5 minutes before the official closing ceremony begins. So I would strongly encourage anybody that would like to either say something or ask a question to, Katrina says, get John on the stage. Okay, I can do that.
You can use some music.
Okay, hang on. Sorry, having mouse control problems. Here we go. Hopefully he's on his way. Yep, he's connecting. And while we're waiting, I just want to let everybody know that, again, really sorry that Abel was unable to join us due to technical problems, but he has very kindly shared his slides with us, so we will make those available to everyone. John, you look like something out of a horror movie. I
Good
mean,
morning.
sorry, but it's obviously a bit dark where you are.
Yes, I'm not wearing pajamas. I'm wearing a nice fleece that is covering up my pajamas.
Okay,
Yes.
full confession, me too.
Yeah, I mean, I actually did have a question. I was trying to type it, but I love the music, so I was getting distracted. I was thinking a lot about what we've over the last 24 hours, we've been talking about this challenge of how we make PIDs and the connections and the data that we create and the metadata records and everything very much as robust and invaluable as possible to researchers, but also make it as seamless as possible. And so then we tend to get into these catch-22s where there's a challenge where things become very like seamless or invisible to researchers at certain points in the process, but then also we want to make sure that we are exposing the value and making sure that we can influence research and get involved. And so there is this tension between us that groups that support research and do PIDs work and infrastructure work to be both in front of researchers and be involved, and also wanting to be in the back and let the researchers do their job. And I think you're exposing a lot of that in terms of how researchers interact with data, and you're talking a lot about how you as a researcher looking at the information that many of us are helping maintain. And it just there's this tension though between like how much do we really try to bring our brands and our values and our names to the front, or do we try to find ways to influence this from the backstage?
Yeah, I think that's a theme that I've heard in other talks too, and there are researchers who just want things to happen automatically. They don't want to know how they work because they're busy understanding, how cells do what cells do, and they don't care about what your IT technology does. They just want it to work reliably. And then there's others, and I tend to fall in the second camp, which is, wait, how did that do that? And I would have preferred to have been asked first, do you want this to happen automatically? Or is there a reason why you may want to have the burden of going through the steps of doing the thing that you're doing? So I go back to the single sign-on with ORCID and the Publons integration. Love it. That's the kind of automagic that you're welcome to have. So I think that's where it really gets back to, evaluating certain things for communities and saying, okay, where does it make sense to, save the researcher steps that, and remind them, that hump that you used to always have to go through, we removed that for you. And this is the technology that did it, brought to you by ORCID or brought to you by DataCite or whatever it is. Just a little reminder that, there's some underlying work that helps you to do this. And, I think that, some kind of way to subtly, some people don't want intrusive messages, but I think, certainly, Twitter, I love science Twitter. If I can't get funding for this project that I'm working on, I'm coming to you folks to do crowdsourcing and work on some of these things, because, we talked a lot about the pain points, and we talked a lot about the, issues of how do we decide certain things or sustain them. And I think we have to look at what are the critical things. And so that's what, as we talked about in our paper, this pandemic has really exposed certain serious pain points around time and distribution of knowledge to the worldwide community who needs it.
And that was also absolutely perfect timing, because it's now right on the hour. I want to thanks John for coming up on the stage. Kathryn, I want to thank you again very much for another wonderful closing to PIDapalooza. We do have our official kind of program committee or planning committee closing coming up now, and we hope many of you will stay around for that, including the absolutely essential extinguishing temporarily of the eternal flame. Hopefully we will manage that without any technical hitches, unlike the lighting of it.
Well, I hope
stay around to watch that at least.
I hope that next year we're able to dance together in the same room, but if not, I'll be here with my fake backdrop.
Yep. We'll all be silent discoing on our own, but that's okay.
Hey, you gotta keep it going, folks. Keep it going.
Thank you very much, Kathryn.
Thank you.